The sound cut through Seaside Diner like shattered glass. A man in a gray Armani suit stood at the counter, his face crimson with rage, finger jabbing toward a young waitress whose hands trembled around a dishcloth. Preston Whitmore, Senior VP at Cascade Holdings, wasn't accustomed to being told his order would take a few extra minutes. Do you even know who I am? I could buy this pathetic diner and fire every single one of you before dessert. His voice bounced off the faded walls, cutting through the usual clatter of silverware and quiet conversations. No one moved. Customers hunched over their plates, eyes down, suddenly fascinated by their meatloaf specials in half-empty coffee cups. At the corner booth by the window, Cole Brennan set down his coffee mug, the ceramic meeting wood, with a quiet finality that his 7-year-old daughter Harper recognized instantly. Her small hand reached for his wrist, but he was already standing, his broad shoulders blocking the afternoon light streaming through the window. The waitress, blonde hair escaping a messy bun name tag reading, Quinn took a half step back, her eyes flickering between the shouting man and the floor. Cole crossed the diner in 5 steady steps and positioned himself between them, his voice low and level. That's enough. Leave. Preston's face twisted, his expensive watch glinting as he turned toward this new obstacle, ready to unleash the same fury on someone who wouldn't back down. Cole didn't move, didn't blink. His hands stayed loose at his sides, but his feet were planted like they'd grown roots through the linoleum floor. Excuse me, do you have any idea who you're talking to? I'm Preston Whitmore, Senior VP at Cascade Holdings. One phone call, and I'll bury you. Preston's words came fast, practiced. The kind of threat that money had taught him always worked. Cole's jaw tightened, just barely, but he didn't take the bait. Let me guess. Cole's voice remained steady, devoid of the anger that would have given Preston satisfaction. Construction worker handyman, or maybe one of those veterans with anger issues. The diner had gone completely silent, the hum of the old refrigerator, the only sound competing with Preston's heavy breathing. Cole's jaw tightened just barely, but he didn't take the bait. Just someone who knows when to walk away. The words hung in the air between them, simple and final. Preston glanced around the diner, suddenly aware that every eye was on him, that someone in the back had their phone out recording. His face went from red to purple, then settled into something colder, more calculated. He pulled a $50 bill from his wallet and threw it on the counter, the paper fluttering down like a wounded bird. Keep the change, sweetheart. Maybe buy yourself some self-respect. Then he turned and walked out the door, swinging shut behind him with a pneumatic hiss that seemed too gentle for what had just happened. The tension broke like a snapped wire. Conversations resumed in low murmurs. Forks clinked against plates, but Quinn stood frozen at the counter, the dishcloth still clenched in her white-knuckled hands. Cole turned to her, his voice softer now. You okay? She looked up at him, and for just a moment, he saw something in her brown eyes that didn't match the uniform or the name tag or the coffee-stained apron. It was the look of someone who'd seen this kind of anger before, who'd learned to make herself small enough to survive it. I've dealt with worse, she said quietly, and the way she said it made Cole believe her. An older woman with silver hair emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. The owner, Rosie herself. Quinn, honey, take 5 minutes. I've got the floor. Quinn shook her head, already reaching for the coffee pot to top off customers who'd gone back to pretending nothing had happened. I'm fine, Rosie. Really. But her hands were still shaking as she poured, and Cole noticed the way she kept her eyes down, the way she moved through the diner like someone trying not to be seen. He walked back to his booth where Harper sat with fire crayons spread across the table, her blue eyes wide with a mixture of concern and admiration. Daddy, you were so brave, she whispered. And Cole could hear her mother in those words, the same thing Lisa used to say, before the cancer took her voice, her strength, everything. He slid into the booth and ruffled Harper's hair, smiling despite the heaviness that settled in his chest whenever he thought about his late wife. Just doing what's right, kiddo. Nothing brave about it. Harper went back to her drawing, but she kept glancing toward Quinn, her 7-year-old mind working through something she didn't quite understand yet. Minutes later, Quinn appeared beside their table with a fresh pot of coffee and a slice of apple pie. On the house, she said, not quite meeting Cole's eyes. He started to protest, but she'd already set down the pie in front of Harper, who beamed up at her. The little girl tilted her head, studying Quinn with that unfiltered curiosity only children possess. What's your real name? Harper's question made Quinn freeze for just a second, her practiced smile faltering. The waitress's lips twitched, almost forming a genuine smile. Quinn, that's my real name. Harper nodded, satisfied with the answer. I'm Harper. That's my daddy Cole. He was a soldier and now he cuts trees. We come here every Friday because daddy works nights and we like pie. Quinn's gaze shifted to Cole for just a second, something unreadable passing across her face before she nodded and turned away. Cole watched her retreat to the counter, watched the way she stood alone by the coffee maker, staring out the window at the gray Oregon sky. Harper leaned across the table, her voice dropping to a stage whisper. She seems sad, Daddy. Cole picked up his coffee cup, the ceramic still warm against his palms. Yeah, kiddo, she does. That was a Friday. The following Friday, Cole and Harper came back to Seaside Diner. Same time, same booth. It became a pattern over the next few weeks. Harper would finish school. Cole would pick her up in his old Ford pickup, and they'd stop at the diner before his night shift at the sawmill started. Quinn always served them, and each time, she seemed a little less like a ghost and more like a person. In the second week, Harper knocked over her milk, the glass shattering against the floor. Before Cole could even move, Quinn was there with a towel and a dustpan, kneeling down to Harper's eye level. It's okay, sweetheart. Just glass and milk. Nothing important broke. Her voice was gentle, practiced, like she'd said these words before to someone else who needed them. Harper's eyes filled with tears. I'm so clumsy, always breaking things. Quinn reached out and squeezed Harper's small hand. You're not clumsy. You're 7. Big difference. When I was 7, I knocked over an entire crystal punch bowl at my father's Christmas party. That's clumsy. The gesture was so natural, so immediate, that Cole found himself wondering about Quinn's story about the life that had taught her to comfort a crying child with such ease. When she brought a fresh glass of milk, she didn't charge them for it. And when Cole tried to add extra to the tip, she waved him off. Don't worry about it, she said, and for the first time she almost smiled. By the 4th week, Harper had started drawing pictures for Quinn, little crayon sketches of families and houses and sunshine that she'd leave folded under her napkin. Quinn always took them, always said thank you, but Cole noticed she never looked at them until she thought no one was watching. He saw her once standing by the kitchen door during a slow moment, unfolding one of Harper's drawings, 3 stick figures holding hands, and the expression on her face was so raw, so full of something like grief, that Cole had to look away. It was during the 5th week that everything started to shift. Cole had dropped Harper at school and swung by Seaside to grab coffee before heading home to sleep. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a few early morning regulars' cars and Quinn's beat-up Honda Civic parked in the back. He was walking to his truck when he heard voices low and tense coming from behind the dumpster. He shouldn't have looked. It wasn't his business, but something about the tone made his feet stop, made him glance around the corner. Quinn stood with her back to him, facing a man in a black suit, silver hair, perfectly styled, a Philippe Patek watch catching the morning sun. The man was holding out an envelope, thick with what could only be cash. Rory, please, the man said, his voice tired, but firm. Your mother is sick with worry, Quinn. Rory apparently shook her head, her arms crossed tight across her chest. Don't call me that. That's not my name anymore. The man sighed, the sound of someone who'd had this conversation before. Running away won't change who you are. You can't just erase your family, your responsibilities. Quinn's voice went sharp, cutting. I'm not running away. I'm finally running towards something. The man stepped closer and Cole saw Quinn stiffen, toward what poverty serving coffee to strangers. Living in a motel room. This isn't freedom, Rory. This is punishment. And you're punishing yourself for something that isn't your fault. Quinn didn't answer for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was so quiet Cole almost didn't hear it. Just leave me alone, please. The man placed the envelope on top of the dumpster and walked away, his shoes clicking against the asphalt. A black Mercedes pulled up, a driver getting out to open the back door. The man paused before getting in, looking back at Quinn one more time. When you're ready to come home, we'll be waiting. Then he was gone, and Quinn was alone staring at the envelope like it might explode. Cole stepped back, giving her space, but not before she turned and saw him. Their eyes met across 20 feet of parking lot. Neither of them spoke. Quinn grabbed the envelope, walked to her car, and threw it in the back seat. She didn't come into the diner after that. Cole saw her drive away, and when he went inside, Rosie told him Quinn had called in sick. She didn't come back for 3 days. When Quinn finally returned to work, she moved through the diner like she was sleepwalking, going through the motions, but not really present. Harper noticed immediately. Is Quinn okay? Daddy, she asked during their Friday dinner. Cole watched Quinn pour coffee for a table of construction. Workers watched the way she smiled without it reaching her eyes. I don't know, kiddo. I think she's dealing with some tough stuff. That night, as Cole was loading Harper into the truck, Quinn came out the back door, her shift over her apron balled up in her hands. She saw them and hesitated, like she might turn around and go back inside. But Harper waved her enthusiasm, impossible to ignore. Quinn. Hi, Quinn walked over slower than usual, her shoulders tight with tension. Hey, Harper. The little girl held up a new drawing, this one showing a bird in a cage with the door open. I made this for you. Quinn took the paper, her hands trembling slightly as she unfolded it. She stared at the drawing for a long time, so long that Cole was about to say something when she finally looked up. Her eyes were wet with unshed tears. Thank you, she whispered. It's beautiful. Harper beamed. The bird gets to fly away if it wants to, but sometimes it comes back because it likes its home. Quinn's breath caught just barely, but Cole heard it. She folded the drawing carefully and put it in her jacket pocket. That's a good ending, she said. Then she looked at Cole, really looked at him, and he saw the question forming before she asked it. Can I talk to you for a minute? Cole glanced at Harper, who was already distracted by a stray cat wandering through the parking lot. Yeah, sure. They walked a few steps away, just far enough that Harper couldn't hear. Quinn crossed her arms again, that defensive posture Cole had started to recognize. You saw me last week with my father. It wasn't a question. Cole nodded. I wasn't trying to spy, just happened to be there. Quinn laughed, but there was no humor in it. My father, Sterling Ashford. Maybe you've heard of him. Cole shook his head. Can't say I have. Quinn looked surprised, then almost relieved. He owns Ashford Industries. $8 billion, 3,200 employees, philanthropy, real estate, tech investments. He's very important. The way she said the last part made it clear what she thought of importance. And you're his daughter, Cole said, the pieces starting to click together. Quinn shook her head. I was his daughter, Aurora Ashford. Private schools, designer, clothes, summers in the Hamptons. The perfect little investment. Cole frowned. Investment? Quinn's voice went flat, reciting facts like she'd memorized them. That's what daughters are in families like mine. Assets to be managed, positioned, married off to the right people. I tried to leave when I was 19. He found me in 2 days. Told everyone I'd had a breakdown, put me in therapy until I learned to behave. Tried again at 25. He threatened to cut off my mother's medical care if I didn't come back. She has MS. Quinn's hands were shaking now and she shoved them into her jacket pockets. This time I planned better. Closed accounts he didn't know about. Changed my name legally. Cut every tie. Became nobody. Just Quinn. Just a waitress in a diner in Cedarville, Oregon, serving coffee and pie to people who don't care where I came from. The parking lot felt very quiet. Cole could hear Harper singing softly to the cat, could hear traffic on the distant highway, but everything else seemed muted. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Quinn looked at him, and the vulnerability in her eyes was almost painful. Because you helped me, and because I need you to know that anyone who gets close to me becomes a target. My father doesn't let go of things or people, and if he finds out you've been kind to me, he'll find a way to hurt you. Cole thought about Harper in the truck, about Lisa's medical bills, still haunting him, about the custody battle with his ex-mother-in-law that had almost destroyed him. He thought about all the ways a man with $8 billion could ruin someone like him. Thanks for the warning, he said finally. Quinn nodded, started to walk away, then stopped. I should quit, find another town. It's what I've done before. Cole surprised himself by reaching out, not touching her, but close enough that she stopped. Or you could stay, let people help you. Quinn shook her head, something like sadness crossing her face. No one can help me. Not against him. She walked to her Honda, got in, and drove away. Cole stood in the parking lot for a long time after that, trying to figure out what he'd just walked into. Harper called out from the truck, Daddy, is Quinn coming back? Cole climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. I hope so, kiddo. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure he believed it. That night, after he tucked Harper into bed and headed to his shift at the sawmill, Cole couldn't stop thinking about Quinn's face when she'd looked at Harper's drawing, about the way she'd said investment, like it was a curse word. He worked his shift mechanically, his mind elsewhere, earning a few concerned looks from his supervisor. The next morning, Cole found an envelope tucked under his windshield wiper. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a note written in precise corporate handwriting. Mr. Brennan, I appreciate your kindness toward my daughter, but I must ask you to maintain distance. This is a family matter. The enclosed should help with any inconvenience. Sterling Ashford. Cole stared at the check for a long moment, then tore it into pieces and let the wind take them. Harper found him standing there when she came out for school. What was that, Daddy? Cole forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Just some trash, kiddo. Nothing important. But it was important, and they both knew it. The warning had been delivered polite and poisonous as arsenic in expensive wine. Quinn didn't show up for work on Monday or Tuesday. By Wednesday, Rosie was worried enough to call Cole, having found his number on an old receipt where he'd written it for Harper in case of emergency. She's not answering her phone, Rosie said, her voice tight with concern. The motel says she checked out Sunday night, paid cash, left no forwarding address. Cole felt something cold settle in his stomach. Did she say anything to you before she left? Rosie was quiet for a moment. She asked me to give you this. That evening, Cole drove to Seaside to pick up what Quinn had left. It was Harper's drawing, the one with the bird in the open cage carefully folded inside a larger piece of paper with a note scrawled in Quinn's handwriting. Thank you for reminding me what brave looks like. I'm sorry I couldn't stay. Take care of that beautiful daughter. She's lucky to have you. Harper cried when Cole told her Quinn had left. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears that broke his heart more than screaming would on. Did we do something wrong? She asked. Cole pulled her close. No, baby. Sometimes people have to leave, even when they don't want to. Harper pulled back, her blue eyes fierce through the tears. Daddy, we have to find her. We have to help her. Cole thought about Sterling Ashford's check, about the warning implicit in every crisp bill. He thought about his daughter, about keeping her safe, about the smart thing to do. Kiddo, I don't think we can. Harper's face crumpled. But you always say we help people who can't help themselves. That's what Mommy taught us. And there it was, his dead wife's voice coming through their daughter's tears. The promise he'd made at her funeral that he'd teach Harper to be brave, to stand up, to do the right thing even when it was hard. Cole closed his eyes and made a decision that would change everything. Okay, he said. Okay, we'll try. It took him 2 days to find Sterling Ashford's address. The internet was surprisingly helpful when you knew what you were looking for. Ashford Estate, West Hills, Portland. 40 acres, 12,000 square foot main house. Security that would make a prison jealous. Cole stood outside his apartment at 5 in the morning, coffee going cold in his hand, looking at the address on his phone and wondering if he'd lost his mind. Harper appeared beside him in her pajamas, her small hand slipping into his. Are we going to save Quinn? Cole looked down at his daughter, at her mother's eyes staring back at him with absolute faith that he could fix this. We're going to try. The drive to Portland took 90 minutes. Harper chattered nervously the whole way, asking questions Cole couldn't answer. What if Quinn wasn't there? What if her father wouldn't let them see her? What if something bad happened? Cole just kept driving, his hands steady on the wheel, his mind running through scenarios that all ended badly. The Ashford estate appeared around a curve in the road like something from a different world. Iron gates, stone walls, security cameras every 20 feet. Cole pulled up to the intercom, his heart pounding in his chest like it had during his first patrol in Kandahar. A voice crackled through the speaker. Private property, please turn around. Cole leaned out the window, his military ID in his hand. My name is Cole Brennan. I'm a veteran. I need to speak with Sterling Ashford. It's urgent. There was a long pause, then the sound of someone making a phone call. 5 minutes passed, the silence broken only by Harper's breathing and the soft ticking of the truck's cooling engine. Then the gates swung open with a mechanical hum that seemed too gentle for what they represented. The driveway was longer than some streets Cole had lived on. Trees lined both sides, perfect and manicured, leading to a house that looked like it had been airlifted from a European estate. A man in a dark suit stood at the entrance, his hands clasped in front of him. Mr. Brennan, he said as Cole parked. Mr. Ashford is expecting you. Please follow me. Cole held Harper's hand tight as they walked through doors that probably cost more than his truck, across marble floors that reflected their faces like water into a living room that could have held his entire apartment twice over. And there, sitting in a leather chair that probably had a pedigree, was Sterling Ashford. He looked exactly like he had in the parking lot. Silver hair, expensive suit, tired eyes that had seen too much of the world to be impressed by anything in it. He stood when they entered. Mr. Brennan, and this must be Harper. Sterling's voice was smooth-cultured, the voice of someone used to being listened to. Cole positioned himself slightly in front of his daughter. Where's Quinn Sterling's expression didn't change. You mean Rory? My daughter, she's upstairs resting. Cole's jaw tightened. I want to see her. Sterling sat back down, gesturing to the chairs across from him. Cole didn't move. Sterling sighed, the sound of a man accustomed to dealing with difficult people. Mr. Brennan, I appreciate your concern, but this is a family matter. Rory has been confused, struggling. She came home because she realized she needed help. Cole's voice went flat. She didn't come home. You brought her here. Sterling's eyes hardened just slightly. She's my daughter. She belongs here. Cole took a step forward. People aren't property, not even daughters. Sterling stood up again, and suddenly the veneer of politeness cracked just enough to show the steel underneath. You have no idea what you're talking about. No idea what I've done for her, what she's throwing away. Harper's small voice cut through the tension. Where is she? I want to see Quinn. Sterling looked at Harper, and something in his face softened. She's not well, sweetheart. She needs rest. Harper pulled away from Cole and walked right up to Sterling, her 7-year-old courage making her seem bigger than she was. You're lying. My daddy says lying is wrong. Sterling blinked clearly, not used to being challenged by a child. Before he could respond, footsteps sounded on the stairs. Everyone turned. Quinn stood on the landing wearing a white dress that looked expensive and wrong on her, her hair pulled back too tight, her face carefully blank. Cole, her voice was barely a whisper. What are you doing here? Harper broke free and ran to the stairs. Quinn, we came to save you. Quinn came down the stairs slowly, like each step hurt. When she reached the bottom, she knelt down to Harper's level, and Cole saw her hands were shaking. You shouldn't be here. It's not safe. Cole moved closer. Did he force you? Quinn looked up at him, and the defeat in her eyes made his chest tight. No, I came back because... She trailed off, glancing at Sterling. Sterling's voice was gentle now, almost kind. She came back because she realized she belongs here. This is where she's meant to be. Cole looked between them, seeing the lie, even if he couldn't prove it. Quinn, look at me. She did, and he saw everything she wasn't saying in that look. What did he threaten you with? Quinn's eyes filled with tears. Sterling stepped forward. That's enough, Mr. Brennan. I think it's time you left. Cole didn't move. Not until she tells me herself. Quinn stood up slowly, and when she spoke, her voice was hollow. He said if I didn't come back, he'd make sure you lost Harper. The words hung in the air like smoke. Cole felt the world tilt, what Quinn's tears spilled over. He has lawyers, the best lawyers money can buy. He said they could prove you're unfit. The PTSD from your service, the financial struggles, the night shifts leaving Harper with an elderly neighbor. He said Harper would be in foster care within a month if I didn't come home. Sterling's face remained calm, almost sympathetic. I simply pointed out the facts, Mr. Brennan. The state has an obligation to ensure children are in safe environments. I was prepared to make a concerned citizen report. Harper grabbed Cole's hand, her grip tight with fear. Daddy Cole knelt down eye level with his daughter, and in that moment he heard Lisa's voice, that last conversation before the cancer took her. Promise me you'll teach her to be brave, to stand up for people who can't stand for themselves. He'd promised. He'd meant it. Cole stood up and looked directly at Sterling Ashford. Go ahead, make your call. Bring your lawyers. Bring all your money. I've faced worse than you. Sterling raised an eyebrow. You're calling my bluff. Cole's voice was steady. I'm calling your cruelty. Do whatever you want to me, but you're not going to keep her here like a prisoner. Sterling's face went cold. She's not a prisoner. She's my daughter, and this is her home. Cole turned to Quinn. Is this what you want? Quinn looked at her father, then at Cole and Harper, then back at her father. The silence stretched. Then she spoke, her voice stronger than it had been. No, it's not. Sterling's mask slipped completely. Rory, think about what you're doing. If you leave now, that's it. No trust fund, no inheritance. Your mother will lose her medical care. Nothing. Quinn walked over to Harper and took her small hand. I was never your daughter. I was your project, your doll to dress up and show off. She looked at Cole. Can I come with you? Harper nodded vigorously. Cole held out his hand. Quinn took it. They walked toward the door, and Sterling's voice followed them, sharp with anger and something that might have been desperation. You're making a mistake. You will regret this. Quinn stopped at the door, turned back one last time. The only thing I regret is not leaving sooner. They walked out into the morning sun, and behind them, the door of the Ashford estate closed with a finality that felt like freedom. In the truck, Quinn sat in the back with Harper, the two of them holding hands. Cole drove, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds, half expecting security to chase them down. His phone rang, unknown number. He answered, putting it on speaker. Mr. Brennan, this is Margaret Hale from Child Protective Services, Multnomah County. We've received a complaint regarding your daughter's living situation. We need to schedule a home visit. Tomorrow morning, 10 turn through. Attendance is mandatory. The line went dead. Cole's hands tightened on the steering wheel. In the mirror, he saw Quinn's face go white. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I've ruined everything. Cole pulled over to the side of the road, put the truck in park, and turned to face them both. No, you chose freedom. Now we fight for it. Harper leaned against Quinn, and Quinn wrapped an arm around her. How do we fight a man with unlimited resources? Cole thought about Lisa's medical bills, about the collection agencies, about every hard thing he'd faced since she died. One day at a time. Together. The next morning, Margaret Hale arrived exactly at 10 morning. She was in her 50s, gray suit, clipboard, the professional detachment of someone who had seen too much. She walked through Cole's small apartment, noting the worn sofa, the kitchen that was clean, but old, the single bedroom where Harper slept while Cole took the couch. She sat down at the kitchen table and asked questions. How long had Cole been working night shifts? Who watched Harper? Had he missed work recently? Was there anyone who could provide character references? Cole answered honestly, knowing that honesty was both his best defense and his greatest vulnerability. Yes, he worked nights. Yes, Mrs. Chen watched Harper. And yes, she was 74. Yes, he'd missed shifts when Harper was sick. No, he didn't have many people who could vouch for him. He'd been so focused on surviving that he hadn't built much of a life. Margaret's face gave nothing away. She asked to speak with Harper alone. Cole stepped into the hallway and Quinn joined him, her face tight with anxiety. This is my fault, she said again. Cole shook his head. It's his fault, not yours. He tried to sound confident, but the truth was he was terrified. He'd fought for his country, survived a roadside bomb that killed two of his friends, battled PTSD that made him wake up screaming, but nothing scared him like the thought of losing Harper. Inside, Harper was telling Margaret about her life, how Daddy made her breakfast every morning, how he helped with homework even when he was tired, how he read to her every night, how he talked about mommies so she wouldn't forget, how he'd stood up for Quinn because that's what brave people do. Margaret wrote everything down her pen, scratching against paper, the only sound in the small room. When she came out, her expression was unreadable. Mr. Brennan, I'll be submitting my report to the court. You'll receive notice of a hearing date within 7 days. Until then, Harper remains in your custody, but I'd suggest you prepare yourself. She left, and the apartment felt very small and very quiet. Quinn paced the tiny living room. There has to be something we can do, some way to fight this. Cole thought about the check Sterling had sent, about the warning, about every threat wrapped in politeness. Then he thought about an old friend from his service days, someone who had become a family lawyer after getting out. He made a call. Janet Reeves had been in Cole's unit in Afghanistan, back before an IED had sent her home with a Purple Heart and a determination to help families instead of hurting them. She listened to the whole story, asked sharp questions, and at the end she was quiet for a long time. Cole, I'm not going to lie to you. Sterling Ashford is one of the most powerful men in Oregon. Going up against him in court is like bringing a knife to a drone strike. Cole closed his eyes. So I'm going to lose Harper. Janet's voice turned sharp. I didn't say that. I said it's hard, not impossible. She paused. And if Quinn is willing to testify, if she's willing to tell the truth about her father, about the control and the threats that changes things, that gives us ammunition. Cole looked at Quinn, who'd been listening. She nodded. I'll do it. Whatever it takes. Janet's voice came through the phone, determined. Okay, then we fight. Discovery starts now, and Mr. Ashford is about to learn that money can't buy everything. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later, Janet worked around the clock, gathering evidence, deposing witnesses, building a case. She found 8 former employees of Sterling Ashford willing to testify about his controlling behavior, about the way he'd monitored Rory's every movement, about the private investigators he'd hired to track her. She got medical records from the therapist who treated Rory at 19, who admitted under oath that Sterling had pressured him to diagnose her with dependency issues. She got bank records showing the $100,000 donation Sterling had made to Child Protective Services just days before the complaint was filed. And she got the recording of Sterling's threat because Cole had recorded their conversation in the living room, legal in Oregon, under one-party consent laws. What she couldn't get was help from Quinn's mother, Catherine Ashford. The woman was too afraid, too dependent on Sterling for her medical care to risk crossing him. Janet worked through the evidence late one night at Cole's kitchen table, drinking coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Harper was asleep, and Quinn was staying in the bedroom with her, giving Cole the couch. Quinn had insisted on taking a job at a coffee shop to help with expenses, despite Cole's protests. She worked mornings while Cole slept after his night at shift, their schedules aligning just enough that someone was always with Harper. Janet looked up from her papers, her eyes tired but determined. "Cole, there's something you should know. Sterling has been busy. He's reached out to your ex-mother-in-law." Cole felt his stomach drop. "Diane, why would he?" Janet cut him off. "He's offering to fund her case for full custody of Harper. She's refused so far, but he's persistent. And that's not all. He's been digging into your military record looking for anything he can use. PTSD episodes, medications, therapy sessions. He's building a case that you're unstable." Cole ran a hand through his hair. "I've been stable for years. One panic attack when I first got back doesn't make me unfit." Janet nodded. "I know that, but in court, it's about perception. He's also looking at your finances. The medical debt from Lisa's treatment, the second mortgage, the late payments on your truck. He's painting a picture of a man who can barely keep his head above water." Cole couldn't argue with that. It was true. Since Lisa's death, he'd been drowning in debt working nights because it paid better living paycheck to paycheck. Janet reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "We're not giving up. We've got truth on our side. Sometimes that's enough." But they both knew that in court, truth without money to back it often lost to lies with deep pockets. The day of the hearing arrived cold and gray. The courtroom was smaller than Cole had expected, less dramatic than the ones he'd seen on TV. Judge Linda Pearson presided, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a reputation for not tolerating manipulation. Sterling Ashford sat on one side with his lawyer Harrison Lockhatch, who wore a suit that probably cost more than Cole made in a month. Cole, Quinn, and Harper sat on the other side with Janet. Margaret Hale sat in the middle, technically neutral, but with a report that Janet had already told Cole wasn't favorable. Harrison Lockhatch opened with confidence, painting a picture of an unsuitable single father living in poverty, working dangerous night shifts, leaving his daughter with an elderly woman struggling with PTSD. "Your Honor," said Mr. Brennan's circumstances, while sympathetic, are not suitable for raising a child. The complaint was filed out of genuine concern for Harper's welfare. Mr. Ashford has no personal interest in this case beyond ensuring the child's well-being. Janet stood up, and her voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. "Your Honor, this complaint was not filed out of concern. It was filed as retaliation. Mr. Ashford threatened Mr. Brennan because Mr. Brennan helped his daughter escape psychological abuse." Harrison started to object, but Janet was already playing the recording of Sterling's threat. She presented the donation to CPS. She called the former employees who testified about Sterling's control over Rory, and then she called Quinn to the stand. Quinn walked up slowly, her hands shaking, as she placed it on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Janet's questions were gentle but direct. "Tell us about your childhood. Tell us about trying to leave. Tell us about what happened when your father found you." Quinn's voice was steady as she answered, laying out 27 years of control disguised as love. "My father tracked my phone. He monitored my bank accounts. He chose my clothes, my friends, my major in college. When I tried to leave at 19, he told everyone I'd had a breakdown. When I tried again at 25, he threatened to cut off my mother's medical care." She looked directly at the judge. "And when Cole Brennan showed me kindness, when he treated me like a person instead of a possession, my father tried to destroy him by threatening to take away his daughter." The courtroom was silent. Judge Pearson looked at Sterling. "Mr. Ashford, do you have anything to say?" Sterling stood, and for the first time he looked less like a titan of industry and more like a tired old man. I love my daughter. Everything I did was to protect her. Judge Pearson's voice was ice. By controlling her, by threatening a man who showed her kindness, by attempting to remove a child from a loving home. Sterling had no answer. Judge Pearson looked at her notes, then at Harper. Harper, can you come up here, please? Harper walked to the judge's bench, her small hand gripping the railing. Judge Pearson smiled at her. Harper, do you feel safe with your daddy? Harper nodded vigorously. Yes, ma'am, he's the best daddy ever. Judge Pearson's smile widened. I can see that. She looked up at the courtroom. I've reviewed all the evidence and I'm ready to make my ruling. The silence was absolute. Judge Pearson's voice was clear and firm. Mr. Ashford, your actions constitute harassment and abuse of the legal system. The donation to CPS is under investigation. This complaint is dismissed. Harper remains with her father. She looked at Cole. However, Mr. Brennan, I'm ordering a follow-up visit in 3 months to ensure stability. Use that time wisely. The gavel came down. It was over. Cole felt Harper crash into him, her arms around his waist, her tears soaking through his shirt. Quinn stood to the side, crying quietly, and Cole reached out and pulled her into the hug too. Behind them, Sterling Ashford walked out of the courtroom alone, his empire intact but his daughter lost forever. In the hallway, Janet hugged them all. You did it. You actually did it. Cole looked at Quinn. We did it. That night, they celebrated with pizza in Cole's tiny apartment, Harper chattering happily between them. But as the evening wound down and Harper fell asleep on the couch, Quinn and Cole sat at the kitchen table in comfortable silence. What happens now? Cole asked. Quinn stared at her hands. I don't know. I need to figure out who I am without him defining me, without anyone defining me. Cole nodded slowly. And where will you do that? Quinn looked up, and in her eyes was something Cole hadn't seen before. Determination. Somewhere new. Somewhere I choose. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Thank you for everything, for reminding me I'm worth fighting for. Cole squeezed back. You always were. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday morning, Quinn packed her Honda Civic with everything she owned. Harper cried as she hugged her goodbye. Will you come back? Quinn knelt down, wiping Harper's tears. Maybe someday, but right now I need to learn how to fly on my own. She looked at Cole. You taught me that, both of you. Cole walked her to her car. Where are you going? Quinn smiled, a real smile this time. North, maybe Seattle, maybe further. Wherever feels right. She hugged him quick and tight. Take care of that little girl. Cole nodded. Always. Quinn got in her car, started the engine, and drove away. Cole and Harper stood in the parking lot until the Honda disappeared around the corner. Harper slipped her hand into his. Will we see her again? Cole thought about the bird in Harper's drawing about open cages and choices. If she wants to come back, she knows where to find us. Harper nodded, satisfied with that answer. They went back inside and life continued. Cole kept his job at the sawmill. Harper kept making stray-oat A's. Mrs. Chen kept making soup. And every Friday they went to Seaside Diner, sitting in their usual booth, remembering the woman who taught them both about courage. 3 months later, Margaret Hale came for her follow-up visit. She spent an hour with them, asking questions, observing, taking notes. At the end, she smiled. Mr. Brennan, I'm closing this case. Harper is exactly where she needs to be. After she left, Cole found Harper in her room drawing another picture. This one showed 3 people, but now they were standing separately, not holding hands. The bird from her first drawing was in the sky above them, flying free. That's beautiful, kiddo. Harper looked up. The bird left, but it's still part of the picture because even when people leave, they don't really leave. They stay in your heart. Cole sat down next to her, pulling her close. When did you get so wise? Harper giggled. From you and Mommy and Quinn. Cole kissed the top of her head. Yeah, from all of us. 6 months passed, marking a rhythm of normalcy that Cole and Harper clung to after the storm of the custody hearing. Fridays at Seaside Diner became their ritual again, though Quinn's absence left a hollow space across the vinyl booth. Harper would sometimes set a napkin on that empty spot, her small way of keeping a place for someone who might return. Cole maintained his night shifts at the sawmill, his body accustomed to the unnatural hours, his mind sometimes drifting to the woman who had briefly entered their lives and then disappeared north. He'd received one postcard from Seattle 2 months after she left. No return address, just Quinn's handwriting, saying simply, "Learning to fly. Thank you." Harper had taped it to the refrigerator where it remained, edges curling with time. The custody case had left Cole with legal bills that Janet had reduced but couldn't eliminate entirely. Each month became a careful balance of expenses. Harper's school supplies, groceries, the rent that had increased in April. He started picking up extra shifts when possible, earning sideways glances from his foreman, who worried about fatigue leading to accidents around the massive blades that turned Pacific Northwest timber into lumber. Financial strain wasn't the only lingering effect. Rumors spread through Cedarville after the hearing. Cole noticed the way some parents at Harper's school would pause their conversations when he approached how certain invitations to birthday parties stopped arriving. The shadow of Sterling Ashford reached farther than the courtroom. "What did they think happened?" Daddy Harper asked one afternoon after a classmate's mother had hurried her child away from them at the grocery store. The little girl was more perceptive than Cole sometimes wished. "People believe what's easy, kiddo, not what's true. Sometimes the truth takes more work." Harper considered this with the seriousness of a child trying to understand an adult world that didn't follow the simple rules she'd been taught. One Tuesday morning, Cole's cell phone rang as he was drifting off to sleep after his shift. The screen showed unknown number, and something in Cole's gut clenched. "Hello, Mr. Brennan, this is Thomas Weber. I'm the HR manager at Cascade Holdings. Preston Whitmore suggested I contact you." Cole sat up, instantly alert. Cascade Holdings, the company of the man he'd confronted at the diner months ago. The voice continued smoothly. "We'd like to discuss a potential position in our security operations division. Your military background and recent experiences have come to our attention." The emphasis on those last words made the implication clear. Cole's mind raced through possibilities. Why would Preston Whitmore, the man who had harassed Quinn, suddenly offer him a job? And how much did they know about what had happened with Sterling Ashford? "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not looking for new employment. The starting salary is $95,000, Mr. Brennan, with full benefits, including excellent health insurance." The voice let the figure hang in the air. Nearly triple what Cole made at the sawmill, enough to erase his debts within a year. Enough for Harper to take dance classes, have a bedroom of her own, maybe even start a college fund. Cole's hands tightened around the phone. "Who put you up to this?" "Whitmore doesn't strike me as the forgiving type." There was a pause. "I'm not at liberty to discuss our hiring process in detail. The position is legitimate, Mr. Brennan. Your background makes you qualified. Sometimes opportunity arrives through unexpected channels. Is Sterling Ashford one of those channels?" Cole's question was met with silence. "I'll need some time to think about it." "Of course, we'll expect your call by Friday." The line went dead, leaving Cole staring at the ceiling, sleep forgotten. The offer dangled before him like a key to a different life, one without constant financial worry. But every instinct told him there were strings attached, invisible but binding. Cole called Janet that afternoon, explaining the strange offer. She listened without interrupting, then exhaled slowly. "This feels like bait, Cole. Sterling lost in court, but men like him don't lose gracefully. They regroup and try a different approach. Why would he want me working for his friend's company?" Cole paced his small kitchen. Janet's voice hardened. "Information, access, control, maybe all three. Remember, he still blames you for Quinn leaving. Men with that kind of wealth and power don't separate business from personal vendettas. They just find legal ways to pursue them." After hanging up, Cole sat at the kitchen table, calculator in hand, working through numbers that never balanced properly. Harper would be home from school soon, and he needed to rest before his shift, but sleep wouldn't come. The ceiling fan turned lazy circles above him, stirring hot air in the apartment that lacked proper cooling for Oregon's increasingly warm summers. The decision should have been easy: turn down the suspicious offer and continue as before. But the possibility of financial security tugged at him like an undertow. Was his pride worth Harper's continued sacrifices? The question followed him through restless dreams. Thursday evening, Cole's phone rang again. Unknown number. This time a different voice greeted him. "Hello, Mr. Brennan, Catherine Ashford, Quinn's mother. I need to speak with you urgently." Cole tensed. "How did you get this number?" "That's irrelevant." Catherine's voice was strained tight with something between fear and determination. "Have you been contacted by Cascade Holdings?" The question knocked the air from Cole's lungs. "Yes. How did you, It's a trap. Sterling arranged it. The words tumbled out as though she feared being interrupted. He and Preston Whitmore are old friends. Sterling wants you where he can monitor you, influence you. The job is real, but the motive isn't opportunity. It's surveillance. My husband is relentless when he feels betrayed. Why are you telling me this? Cole gripped the phone tighter. A pause stretched between them. Because my daughter chose you to help her, and she was right. I've spent 28 years making the wrong choice. Maybe it's time I made the right one. Catherine's voice dropped lower. Sterling doesn't know I'm calling. I've learned a few things about privacy from watching Rory escape. Cole tried to process this unexpected alliance. Is Quinn Rory all right? Have you heard from her? No. Catherine's voice cracked slightly, but I've made arrangements to secure her trust fund independently of Sterling's control. If you hear from her, tell her that. Tell her I've finally done what I should have done years ago. After Catherine hung up, Cole made his decision. He called the HR manager back and declined the position, citing family reasons. The man didn't sound surprised, merely disappointed, as though a chess piece had moved in an expected direction. That night at the sawmill, Cole worked with mechanical precision, the rhythm of the machinery matching his thoughts. He'd chosen Harper's security over financial opportunity once again, but Catherine's warning left him unsettled. If Sterling was still maneuvering against him months after the court battle, what other approaches might follow? The answer came sooner than expected. Sunday morning, Cole opened his apartment door to find an elegantly dressed woman in her early 40s waiting in the hallway. Her tailored suit and pearl necklace looked jarringly out of place against the faded carpet of his apartment building. Cole Brennan. I'm Marissa Whitaker, education consultant with Eastridge Academy. I'd like to speak with you about a scholarship opportunity for Harper. Cole's guard immediately rose. I didn't apply for any scholarships. The woman smiled, practiced and perfect. That's the beauty of our program, Mr. Brennan. We identify promising students from diverse backgrounds. Harper's academic record is impressive. Eastridge offers a world-class education that could open doors to the finest universities. The scholarship covers full tuition and expenses. Cole leaned against the door frame, blocking entry to the apartment where Harper was watching TV. And what's the connection to Sterling Ashford? The woman's smile faltered for just a moment. I'm not familiar with that name. Our foundation has numerous anonymous donors who believe in educational opportunity. I bet they do. Cole's voice remained steady. Please tell Mr. Ashford that Harper is doing excellently in her current school. We're not interested. The woman's professional demeanor hardened slightly. Mr. Brennan, few parents reject opportunities like this. Your daughter deserves. My daughter deserves honesty from the adults in her life. Cole met her gaze directly, including me, including supposed education consultants. The conversation is over. After Marissa Whitaker left, Cole sat beside Harper on the couch, his mind racing. Sterling was trying a new approach, not threatening to take Harper away, but offering to separate them through opportunity. The strategy was more sophisticated than the job offer. What parent could justify refusing educational advantages for their child? He pulled Harper closer, kissing the top of her head. The 7-year-old looked up from her cartoon. Why was that lady here, Daddy? She wanted to talk about a different school for you, one that costs a lot of money. Harper frowned. But I like my school. My friends are there. Cole nodded, relieved by her response, yet troubled by how easily Sterling found new pressure points. I like your school too, kiddo. The attempts to infiltrate their lives paused for several weeks after that, long enough that Cole began to hope Sterling had finally accepted defeat. Then Mrs. Chen, their elderly neighbor who watched Harper after school, fell and broke her hip. The timing couldn't have been worse. Summer vacation was still a month away, and Cole had no immediate childcare solution. Within days, 3 different upscale childcare services contacted him, offering special rates and flexible hours. Each mentioned community recommendations when Cole asked how they'd heard about his situation. He declined them all, arranging instead for Harper to stay with Janet's family after school, despite the inconvenient drive. The pattern became clear. Sterling was waiting for moments of vulnerability, then offering solutions that would create access or influence. Cole began to understand Quinn's exhaustion. This wasn't just harassment, it was psychological warfare. The constant pressure of knowing someone was watching, waiting, calculating your next point of weakness. Harper noticed the strain, though Cole tried to hide it. One night, finding him at the kitchen table, reviewing bills, she placed her small hand over his. "It's okay, Daddy. We don't need fancy things." The simple statement nearly broke him. He gathered her into his arms, struck by how unfair it was that his 7-year-old felt the need to reassure him about their circumstances. "You deserve fancy things sometimes, baby." Harper shrugged against his chest. "I have you. That's better than fancy." Cole held her tighter, love and determination crystallizing into something harder than diamond. No matter what Sterling tried next, this was what mattered. This small, fierce person who saw value beyond price tags and prestige. 2 months after Quinn left the postcard from Seattle, still their only contact, Cole's phone rang during his pre-shift dinner with Harper. Private number, the screen displayed. He almost ignored it, wary of another manipulation attempt, but something made him answer. Cole. The voice was familiar, yet strange, as though speaking from underwater. "It's Quinn." His heart stuttered. "Quinn, are you okay?" A long pause filled the line. "Not really. I'm in Portland. Sterling found me in Seattle. I've been moving around." There was something different in her voice, a fragility that hadn't been there before. Harper's head snapped up at Quinn's name, her eyes wide with hope. Cole held up one finger, signaling her to wait. "Where are you exactly? I can come get you." Another pause. "I don't think that's a good idea. I wanted to hear a friendly voice. Let Harper know I'm thinking about her." Quinn's words slurred slightly at the edges. Cole's concern deepened. "Have you been drinking?" A hollow laugh came through the phone. "Coping mechanism. Not a great one. Turns out freedom isn't so simple when you've never had it." "I don't know how to be a person, Cole. I only know how to be a possession or a fugitive. Let me help you." Cole kept his voice steady despite the alarm building inside him. "You don't have to do this alone. That's why I left, remember? So you and Harper would be safe," her voice cracked. "Has he stopped the harassment?" Cole hesitated, unwilling to add to her burden. "We're managing, which means no." Quinn's bitter laugh held no humor. "He'll never stop. Not with me, not with you. You should have taken the job at Cascade." Cole straightened. "How did you know about that?" "I have sources. I'm my father's daughter, after all." Quinn's voice drifted, disconnected. "Some things you can't run from. They're in your blood." "Where are you staying?" Cole pressed, increasingly worried about her state. "I can be in Portland in 90 minutes. No, just tell Harper I miss her. Tell her the bird is still trying to fly." The line went dead. Cole stared at the phone, Harper's questioning eyes burning into him. Was that Quinn? Is she coming back? He couldn't lie, but he couldn't share the full truth either. "That was Quinn. She's in Portland, but she's having a tough time. She misses you." Harper's face felt disappointment clouding her features. She promised she'd come back someday. Cole pulled her close. "She will, kiddo. But sometimes people need to figure things out first. She asked me to tell you the bird is still trying to fly." Harper considered this, connecting it to her drawing. "She needs help, doesn't she? Like when birds get hurt and can't fly right." The insight struck Cole with its simple accuracy. "Yes, I think she does." That night at work, Cole couldn't focus. Quinn's call replayed in his mind. The slurred words, the hopelessness, the implication that Sterling was still pursuing her. He almost called Janet during his break to ask her advice, but stopped himself. This wasn't a legal problem anymore. It was personal. After his shift ended at dawn, instead of going home, Cole drove to Portland. He had no address for Quinn, only the knowledge that she was somewhere in the city and struggling. It was a fool's errand searching for one person in a metropolitan area of over 2 million. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that Quinn had called for a reason, not just to check in, but as a muffled cry for help. Cole started in downtown, checking hotels he could afford if he were Quinn. Nothing. He tried homeless shelters, showing her picture from his phone. No recognition. By noon, exhaustion clouded his judgment, his body demanding the sleep he'd missed after working all night. He sat in his truck outside a coffee shop, eyes burning, ready to admit defeat. His phone rang. Unknown number, like so many calls these days. "Sterling, another job offer." Quinn again. Cole answered without speaking. "Mr. Brennan," a woman's voice unfamiliar. "This is Portland General Hospital. We have a patient named Quinn who had your number as her emergency contact. She was admitted last night for alcohol poisoning and possible drug interaction. Cole's exhaustion vanished. Is she okay? Stable now? The nurse's voice was professionally detached. She's asking for you. The hospital room was sterile white machines beeping quietly beside the bed, where Quinn lay looking smaller than Cole remembered. Her blonde hair was different, shorter, dyed darker at the ends, like she'd been trying to change her appearance. An IV dripped fluid into her arm. You came. Her voice was raspy, eyes bloodshot. I didn't think you would. Cole moved to the chair beside her bed. You called me last night. Did I? Quinn closed her eyes. I don't remember much. They say I had a bad reaction to mixing alcohol with my anxiety medication. Not exactly my finest moment. Cole leaned forward, elbows on his knees. What happened? Quinn, last I heard you were heading to Seattle to start over. I did. Got an apartment, found a job at an art gallery. Quinn's laugh was bitter. Turns out gallery customers look at the art, not the staff. I was invisible for the first time in my life. It was peaceful until Sterling's private investigators showed up 3 weeks ago. She turned to face the window sunlight, highlighting the hollowness of her cheeks. He didn't come himself this time, just sent photos proving he knew where I lived, where I worked. My mother's medical records showing her condition worsening, a reminder of what happens to people who defy him. Cole's jaw tightened. So you ran again? Quinn nodded. Portland seemed safer somehow. More places to disappear. I found a room in a boarding house, started working at a bar. The drinking was self-medication. The sleeping pills, too. Last night I just took too much of everything. The unspoken truth hung between them. It might not have been entirely accidental. Cole reached for her hand, finding it cold and fragile. This can't continue, Quinn. Running, hiding, self-destructing. It's giving him exactly what he wants. Control even from a distance. What's the alternative? Quinn's voice cracked. Go back. Let him win. No. We fight again, but differently this time. Cole squeezed her hand. The hearing was defense. Now we go on offense. Quinn shook her head, fear crossing her features. You don't understand what he's capable of. I understand exactly what he's capable of. Cole's voice hardened. He's been circling us for months. Job offers, scholarships for Harvard, even childcare services. He's trying to find a way back in to establish control over us like he did with you. The difference is, I see his moves coming now. A nurse entered, checking Quinn's vitals, interrupting their conversation. When they were alone again, Quinn turned to Cole, something like hope flickering across her face for the first time. What are you suggesting? That we stop reacting and start acting? Cole leaned closer. Your mother called me. Quinn's eyes widened. What? When? Last week. She warned me about the job offer from Cascade Holdings, said it was Sterling's attempt to keep tabs on me. She also mentioned setting up your trust fund independently. Quinn shook her head in disbelief. My mother stood up to him. After all these years, people surprise you sometimes. Cole's expression softened, even themselves. A tear slipped down Quinn's cheek. My whole life, I just wanted her to choose me over him. Just once. She's choosing you now. Cole hesitated, then continued. I think it's time we stopped running from Sterling and confronted him directly. Not in court, but on our own terms. With your mother's help. Quinn studied him, doubt warring with desperation in her eyes. What exactly are you proposing? A meeting? You, me, your mother, and Sterling. Neutral ground, Janet present as legal counsel. We make it clear that his harassment ends now, or we go public with everything. The manipulation, the threats, the use of his corporate connections to stalk and intimidate. Quinn's laugh held no humor. You think bad publicity scares a man like my father? I think the truth scares him more than anything. Cole met her gaze steadily. Not the public version, the personal truth. That his wife has finally found the courage to leave. That his daughter sees him clearly and chooses freedom despite the cost. That all his money and power can't buy what he really wants. Control over the people he claims to love. Quinn was silent for a long moment, considering. It won't work. He'll find another way. He always does. Then we'll fight that too. Cole's voice softened, but we do it together this time. No more running separately. He wins when we're isolated, vulnerable. Together, we're stronger. Quinn turned to the window again, watching clouds pass over the Portland skyline. After what felt like an eternity, she spoke. I'm tired of running. Her voice was barely audible. So tired of being afraid. Then stop. Cole stood, his decision made. I'll call Catherine, set up the meeting. And this time, Sterling Ashford learns what it means to face people who aren't afraid of him anymore. Later that afternoon, as Quinn slept sedated by hospital medication, Cole stepped into the hallway and made the call to Catherine Ashford. He outlined his proposal, expecting resistance, perhaps even refusal. Instead, her response surprised him. I've been waiting for this moment for 28 years, Mr. Brennan. Catherine's voice held a strength Cole hadn't heard during their previous conversation. Sterling's away on business until Thursday. I can arrange for him to meet us at my personal suite at the Heathman Hotel on Friday morning. He won't suspect anything until he arrives. Cole hesitated. Are you sure about this? The consequences are long overdue. Catherine cut him off. My daughter nearly died last night because of his psychological terrorism. I've enabled him for too long, no more. After ending the call, Cole gazed through the hospital window at the city below, streets filled with people living ordinary lives untouched by the kind of power Sterling wielded. He thought about Harper waiting at Janet's house, about the promises he'd made to protect her. Was he risking too much by engaging Sterling directly? Or was this the only way to truly end the threat hanging over them all? His phone buzzed with a text from Janet. Mrs. Chen called. Men claiming to be insurance adjusters were asking questions about you at her apartment. Stay alert. The timing wasn't coincidental. Sterling was escalating again, probing for weaknesses while Quinn was vulnerable. Cole texted back, need your help Friday morning. Confrontation with Sterling. Heathman Hotel. Janet's response came seconds later. Dangerous move. You sure? Cole looked back at Quinn's sleeping form, remembering her words. I'm tired of running. So tired of being afraid. He typed his reply, no more running, time to end this. Friday morning arrived with a clarity that seemed significant, sunlight breaking through Oregon's perpetual clouds, as though nature itself acknowledged the importance of the day. Cole had spent Thursday making arrangements, ensuring Harper would stay with Janet's family, preparing Quinn for the confrontation, and grappling with his own doubts about forcing a showdown with a man as powerful as Sterling Ashford. Quinn had been discharged from the hospital the previous afternoon, the doctor satisfied she was no longer in danger from her overdose. They'd prescribed follow-up therapy and recommended addiction counseling concerns Quinn had dismissed with practiced deflection. Now she sat beside Cole in his truck, her face pale but determined, as they navigated Portland's morning traffic toward the Heathman Hotel. This is insane, you know that, right? Quinn stared straight ahead, fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. My father doesn't lose confrontations. It's not in his DNA. Cole kept his eyes on the road. Maybe that's because no one's ever confronted him with the full truth before. Surrounded by yes-men lawyers and people he can buy off. That's not us. Quinn's laugh held no humor. Just a single mom with MS, a sawmill worker with PTSD, and his alcoholic daughter with an Ivy League education she's never used. We're quite the dream team. Don't forget, Janet Cole added, switching lanes. Former military, Harvard Law, never lost a case against a corporate bully. And we have something Sterling doesn't. Quinn raised an eyebrow. What's that? Nothing left to lose. Cole pulled into the hotel's valet area. Your father deals in fear. He finds what people care about and threatens it. He's already played his best cards against us, and we're still standing. The Heathman's lobby embodied old-world elegance with mahogany paneling and staff who pretended not to notice Quinn's nervous energy as they made their way to the elevators. Catherine had arranged a private suite on the 10th floor, neutral ground that belonged to neither Sterling's world nor Cole's. Janet met them at the elevator, briefcase in hand, her military posture unchanged by civilian clothes. The attorney assessed Quinn with a quick glance, noting the hospital bracelet still on her wrist. Catherine is already upstairs. Sterling should arrive in 20 minutes. She handed Quinn a folder. Everything we have. Recordings, documentation of harassment, medical records, financial trails. If he tries to deny anything, we've got receipts. Quinn took the folder but didn't open it. My father won't be intimidated by paperwork. He'll have 10 lawyers working before we finish our first sentence. Janet's smile was sharp as a blade. That's why we're not approaching this as a legal threat. This is personal, not professional. We're offering him a choice, not an ultimatum. The suite Catherine had reserved featured floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Portland's skyline furniture that whispered wealth without shouting it, and a conference table set with water bottles and notepads, as though this were a business meeting rather than a family reckoning. Catherine Ashford stood by the windows, her slender frame outlined against the city view. She turned as they entered, and Cole was struck by how much Quinn resembled her. The same delicate features, the same wary intelligence in her eyes. Unlike Quinn's hospital pallor, however, Catherine's complexion bore the artificial flush of someone working hard to appear healthier than they were. Rory. Catherine moved forward, arms slightly extended, stopping when Quinn stiffened. I wasn't sure you'd come. Quinn's voice was carefully neutral. I'm not here for reconciliation. I'm here to end his control over all of us. Catherine nodded, pain flashing across her face before she composed herself. Yes, that's why I'm here too. After 28 years, it's time. The next 15 minutes passed in tense preparation. Janet reviewed their strategy. No accusations, no threats, just clear boundaries and consequences. Quinn paced by the windows, her reflection fragmenting and reforming with each step. Catherine arranged and rearranged items on the conference table with shaking hands. Cole stood near the door, mentally rehearsing what he would and wouldn't say when Sterling arrived. The elevator chime announced Sterling's arrival with the precision of a courthouse clock. Footsteps approached down the hallway. Not one person, but two. The door opened without a knock, and Sterling Ashford entered, followed by a younger man in an equally expensive suit carrying a leather portfolio. Sterling paused just inside the doorway, taking in the assembled group. His expression shifted from confusion to calculation in the span of a heartbeat. Surprise meetings rarely end well, Catherine. The room was dead silent as Sterling moved to the head of the conference table, claiming the position of authority without being offered it. I see you've assembled quite an audience for whatever this is. Quinn stepped forward from the window, moving into her father's line of sight. This isn't a board meeting. You don't run this conversation. Sterling's face softened at the sight of his daughter, though his eyes remained sharp. Rory, I've been worried about you. The young man behind Sterling opened his portfolio, ready to take notes, but Sterling waved him off. Give us the room, Michael. The assistant hesitated. Sir, given the presence of legal counsel, I said give us the room. Sterling's voice left no room for argument. The young man nodded and exited, closing the door with deliberate softness. Sterling unbuttoned his suit jacket and sat at the head of the table. So, my wife, my daughter, the sawmill worker who interfered in my family matters, and a lawyer. Should I assume this is some sort of intervention? Catherine spoke before anyone else could respond. It's a reckoning, Sterling. She moved to the table but remained standing. For 28 years, I've watched you control, manipulate, and terrorize our daughter in the name of protection. I've enabled it through my silence and my dependence. That ends today. Sterling's expression remained neutral, but Cole noticed his knuckles whitening as he gripped the armrests of his chair. I see. And what exactly do you propose, Catherine? That I simply stop caring about our daughter's welfare, stop worrying when she throws away every advantage to live in squalor and work menial jobs. Quinn slammed the hospital folder onto the table. Is this caring stalking me across state lines? Threatening Cole and his daughter? Driving me to? Her voice cracked and she gestured to the hospital bracelet still circling her wrist. For the first time, genuine concern crossed Sterling's features. What happened? I mixed alcohol with anxiety medication. Quinn's voice was flat, the kind of medication I've needed since childhood to manage the stress of being your daughter. I spent Tuesday night having my stomach pumped while doctors debated whether it was a suicide attempt. Sterling flinched as though she'd struck him. I never wanted that. Whatever you believe about me, Rory, I never wanted you hurt. Janet stepped forward, her attorney's demeanor both professional and formidable. Mr. Ashford, we've documented multiple instances of harassment, coercion, and psychological abuse directed at your daughter, Mr. Brennan, and his child. We have evidence of your attempts to manipulate Child Protective Services, your coordination with Preston Whitmore to create false employment opportunities, and your use of private investigators to track Quinn across state lines. If you're genuinely concerned about her welfare, these actions demonstrate the opposite. Sterling's gaze hardened. I don't respond well to threats, Ms. Reeves. Janet Reeves. And this isn't a threat, it's an opportunity for resolution. Janet placed her own folder on the table. We're not asking for money, We're asking you to stop. Completely. Permanently. No more surveillance, no more interference, no more attempts to control Quinn's life or manipulate Cole's circumstances. And if I refuse this generous offer, Sterling's sarcasm couldn't quite mask his tension. Cole spoke for the first time since Sterling's arrival. Then everything becomes public. Not just the legal documents, but the personal story. How one of Oregon's most powerful men terrorized his own family. How Quinn had to change her name and flee across multiple states. How you tried to take my daughter away as revenge. Some stories even all your money can't bury. You're bluffing. Sterling dismissed the threat with a wave. I have relationships with every major news outlet in the Pacific Northwest. No one would run that story. The internet doesn't require editorial approval. Catherine's voice was stronger now. I've written my own account, Sterling. Every detail of our marriage. Every time you tracked Rory's phone without her knowledge. Every time you threatened her educational funding. If she didn't comply with your expectations. Every time you used my medical care as leverage. It's ready to post on multiple platforms simultaneously. Sterling turned to his wife, genuine shock replacing his controlled facade. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. Catherine pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. I'm tired of being the voiceless, helpless wife whose MS makes her dependent on your generosity. I'd rather struggle with my disease independently than continue enabling your control. A tense silence filled the room. Sterling's gaze moved from Catherine to Quinn to Cole, assessing, calculating, as he always did when confronted with opposition. Finally, he leaned back in his chair. What exactly do you want from me? Quinn stepped forward, placing both hands on the table and leaning toward her father. We want you to let go, all of us completely. No more private investigators, no more threats, no more manipulation disguised as concern. I'm 27 years old. I get to choose my own life, even if you think I'm making a mistake. Sterling's jaw tightened. And if I believe you're deliberately destroying your future out of some misguided rebellion, then that's my choice too. Quinn's voice gained strength. I'd rather fail on my terms than succeed on yours. That's what you've never understood. Love without freedom isn't love at all. It's possession. Something shifted in Sterling's expression, a flicker of recognition, perhaps even understanding. He turned to Cole, studying him with new intensity. And what do you want from this, Mr. Brennan? You've involved yourself in a family dispute that never concerned you. Cole met his gaze without flinching. I want to raise my daughter in peace. I want Quinn to have the chance to build her own life. And I want you to understand that all your money and power can't buy the things that actually matter. The confrontation reached its first turning point as Sterling stood abruptly walking to the window with his back to the group. For several minutes, no one spoke, the only sound the faint traffic noise from 10 stories below. When Sterling finally turned, his face had aged a decade. My father was a construction worker in Tacoma. Sterling's voice had lost its corporate polish, revealing hints of a different upbringing. We lived in a 2-room apartment until I was 12 when he died of a heart attack on a job site. No insurance, no savings. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. I promised myself my children would never know that kind of insecurity. Quinn shook her head. So you replaced financial insecurity with emotional insecurity. Great trade, Dad. Sterling continued as though she hadn't spoken. Everything I've done, the company, the investments, the connections, was to build a fortress around this family. To make sure no one could ever hurt you the way poverty hurt me. He looked directly at Quinn. I never saw it as control. I saw it as protection. Catherine stepped closer to her husband. Protection doesn't track phone locations without consent. Protection doesn't threaten medical care as leverage. Protection doesn't try to destroy a man and take away his child because he helped your daughter escape. She reached for Sterling's hand, an intimate gesture that seemed to surprise them both. You became the very thing you were trying to protect us from, a threat to our security and happiness. The confrontation's second critical moment arrived in Sterling's response. Not words, but the visible crumbling of certainty in his expression. For perhaps the first time in decades, Sterling Ashford faced a truth he couldn't buy his way out of or litigate into submission. I don't know how to be different. Sterling's admission hung in the air. This is who I've been for 40 years. This is how I've survived. Then it's time to learn something new. Cole moved forward, standing beside Quinn. Starting with letting go of people who need to find their own path, Sterling looked at his daughter, really looked at her, perhaps seeing the hospital bracelet and the exhaustion in her eyes for the first time. Did I do this to you? The question emerged rough, unvarnished. Quinn didn't soften her response. Yes, not alone, but yes. Every time I tried to establish independence, you crushed it. Every boundary I set, you violated it. You turned me into someone who either had to submit completely or run constantly. There was never any middle ground. Janet interjected, returning the conversation to practical matters. Mr. Ashford, we need specific commitments. No further surveillance. No contact with Cole's employers or Harper's school. No financial manipulations regarding Catherine's medical care or Quinn's trust fund. No private investigators. We can formalize this in writing today. Sterling returned to his seat at the table, the negotiator reasserting himself. And what guarantees do I have that Rory won't simply disappear again? That Catherine won't proceed with her threats regardless of my compliance, Cole answered before the others could. The same guarantee we have from you. Trust, something you can't buy or force. It has to be earned through actions. For the first time, something like respect flickered across Sterling's face as he regarded Cole. You're either very brave or very foolish, Mr. Brennan. Cole met his gaze. Just a father protecting his family. Something you claim to understand. The room fell silent again as Sterling considered his options. Catherine remained beside him, Quinn and Cole across the table, Janet standing slightly apart, the legal observer to this family reckoning. Finally, Sterling nodded once decisively. I'll agree to your terms with two conditions of my own. His voice resumed its business precision. First, Catherine's medical care continues uninterrupted regardless of our marital status. I established a separate trust for that purpose this morning. Second, Rory's trust fund transfers to her complete control, but she agrees to quarterly family dinners. Not at the estate somewhere neutral. Just communication, not control. Quinn looked surprised by the offer, suspicion warring with something more complicated in her expression. Why would you want that? Sterling's answer came without his usual calculation. Because you're my daughter. Despite everything, I want to know you. The real you, not the person I tried to shape you into. The negotiation continued for another hour. Janet documenting every detail, clarifying language, closing loopholes. Sterling participated actively, his legal mind finding and resolving ambiguities that might later cause conflict. By noon, they had a document that outlined not laws but boundaries, the architecture of a new relationship between all parties. As Janet finalized the paperwork, Catherine spoke privately with Sterling near the windows, their conversation too quiet for the others to hear. Quinn watched them with a mixture of hope and skepticism, years of conditioning making her wary of any apparent surrender from her father. Do you think he means it? Quinn asked Cole, her voice low. Or is this just another strategy? Cole considered the question seriously. I think he's genuinely shocked by how far things went. Your hospitalization, Catherine's ultimatum, the realization that his actions drove you to the breaking point. Sometimes people need to see the consequences of their behavior in stark terms before they can change. Quinn's shoulders slumped slightly, the tension of the morning catching up to her. I don't know how to have a normal relationship with him. I don't even know what that would look like. You don't have to figure it out today. Cole watched as Janet brought the documents to Sterling for his signature. One step at a time, freedom first, then you decide what kind of connection you want, if any. The signing proceeded without further drama, copies distributed to all parties. Sterling shook Janet's hand with professional courtesy, nodded to Cole with something approaching respect, and turned to Quinn with visible hesitation. Rory, he stopped, correcting himself. Quinn, I'd like to help with your recovery, whatever you need. Treatment programs, therapy, a place to stay. Quinn tensed, old patterns flaring. I don't need your money. Sterling's response surprised them all. I'm not offering money, I'm offering support. Your terms, your choices. If you want distance, I'll respect that. If you want help, I'll provide it without conditions. For once in my life, I'm trying to listen instead of direct. The sincerity in his voice penetrated Quinn's defenses enough for her to nod slightly. I'll think about it. As Sterling prepared to leave, Catherine walked him to the door, their private conversation continuing. Cole couldn't hear the words, but the body language suggested reconciliation remained distant, if not impossible. Some damages couldn't be repaired with a signature on a document, no matter how well-intentioned. After Sterling departed, the tension in the room dissipated like fog under strong sunlight. Janet gathered her materials, professional demeanor softening as she squeezed Quinn's shoulder. You did well. Standing up to someone like that takes courage. Quinn's laugh held a fraction more humor than before. Courage or desperation. Not sure there's much difference anymore. Catherine rejoined them, looking both exhausted and relieved. He's agreed to the divorce proceeding. Uncontested. She sat heavily in one of the plush chairs. I never thought I'd see the day when Sterling Ashford would surrender control voluntarily. Did he, though? Quinn's skepticism reasserted itself? Or is this just a tactical retreat? Janet shook her head. The documentation is solid. Any violation invalidates the confidentiality clauses. If he resumes harassment, everything becomes public. She closed her briefcase with a definitive click. Sterling's business empire depends on his reputation. He won't risk it. After Janet left for another appointment, the three remaining participants in the morning's confrontation sat in a triangle of uncertain alliance. Catherine, the wife, finding her voice after decades of silence. Quinn, the daughter, torn between hope and hard-earned distrust. And Cole, the outsider who had become essential to their liberation. What happens now? Catherine directed the question to both of them, but her eyes rested on her daughter. Quinn stared at her hands. I need time. To think, to heal. Maybe some actual therapy instead of just medication. She looked up at her mother. Are you really leaving him? After all these years, Catherine's smile held both sadness and determination. I already have in every way that matters. The legal details will take time, but yes, I've leased an apartment in the Pearl District. Small, but it has good accessibility features for when my MS flares. The conversation continued. Mother and daughter carefully navigating decades of complicated emotions, finding moments of connection amid the wreckage of their family structure. Cole excused himself to call Janet's house, checking on Harper, giving Quinn and Catherine privacy for their reconciliation. From the hallway, he heard Quinn's laugh, genuine this time, not bitter, in response to something Catherine had said. The sound represented the first fragile evidence that healing might actually be possible. When Cole returned, the atmosphere had shifted again. Quinn stood by the window, Catherine beside her, both looking out at Portland, spread below them. They turned as he entered, a new resolve visible in Quinn's posture. I've made a decision. Quinn's voice was steadier than it had been all morning. I'm not going back to Seattle. I'm staying in Portland, at least for now. Mom's found me a therapist who specializes in trauma and addiction recovery. Catherine nodded. And I've offered her the guest room in my new apartment while she gets back on her feet. Not as her mother controlling her, but as her mother supporting her. Cole smiled. That sounds like a good first step. Quinn moved closer to him. What about you? Going back to the sawmill tonight. Cole nodded. Life returns to normal, or whatever passes for normal these days. The three of them left the hotel together, stepping into Portland's midday bustle. At the valet stand, Catherine hugged Quinn with careful tenderness before turning to Cole. Thank you for forcing this confrontation. I've spent too many years taking the path of least resistance. It took your courage to show me another way. After Catherine departed in her own car, Quinn and Cole stood awkwardly beside his truck. The intimacy forged through shared crisis, shifting now that the immediate danger had passed. You should go home to Harper. Quinn tucked her hands into her pockets. She must be worried about you. Cole studied her face, noting small signs of improvement already. Clearer eyes, steadier hands, the barest hint of color returning to her cheeks. You'll stay in touch this time, not just disappear. Quinn's smile was small but genuine. I promise, no more running. She hesitated, then added, Tell Harper the bird is learning to land now, not just fly. Sometimes freedom means choosing where to rest, not just escaping the cage. The drive back to Cedarville passed in contemplative silence. Cole processed the morning's confrontation, marveling at how Sterling had ultimately capitulated. Not completely, not without conditions, but enough to create space for everyone to breathe. Whether his change of heart would prove lasting remained to be seen, but the power dynamic had shifted irrevocably. Harper was playing in Janet's backyard when Cole arrived, her face lighting up as she ran to him. Did you find Quinn? Is she okay? The questions tumbled out before he could even step from the truck. Cole knelt to her level, brushing back hair that had escaped her ponytail. Quinn is okay. She's staying in Portland with her mom for a while. She's getting some help for the things that made her sad. Harper's expression turned serious. Is her dad still being mean? Cole chose his words carefully. He's learning not to be. Sometimes adults need to learn lessons too, just like kids do. Janet invited Cole to stay for dinner, but he declined, wanting to return to their apartment to normalcy. On the drive home, Harper asked more questions about Quinn, about Sterling, about what had happened at the hotel. Cole answered as honestly as he could while shielding her from the darker details. At home, Harper disappeared into her room and returned with a drawing. Another bird, but this one perched on a branch rather than flying or caged. Can you send this to Quinn? I want her to know birds need to rest too. Cole promised to mail it the following day. After Harper's bedtime routine, bath story prayers that still included her mother even a year after her death, Cole sat on the edge of her bed watching his daughter drift towards sleep. Daddy Harper's voice was drowsy. Will Quinn come back to see us? Cole stroked her hair. I think she will when she's ready. Harper nodded, already half asleep. Good. She makes you smile more. The observation, simple and unfiltered, as only a child's could be, followed Cole into the living room, where he sat with a rare beer contemplating the day's events. Was Harper right? Did Quinn's presence in their lives, complicated as it had been, bring something he'd been missing since Lisa's death? The thought accompanied him to the sawmill that night, threading through the mechanical rhythm of his work. By morning, exhaustion blurred the philosophical questions, reducing his focus to the practical matters of getting Harper to school and himself to bed. 3 weeks passed in relative calm. Cole received 2 text messages from Quinn, brief updates about her therapy, her mother's health, a tentative plan to have dinner with Sterling the following month. No mention of returning to Cedarville or seeing Cole and Harper again. He told himself this was progress, that her focus on healing was necessary and right, even as he found himself glancing toward her former seat each Friday at his seaside diner. Harper asked about Quinn less frequently, but continued making drawings that Cole dutifully mailed to Catherine's Portland address. Quinn sent back short notes of thanks addressed specifically to Harper, their tone warm but carefully maintaining distance. On the 4th Friday after the hotel confrontation, Cole and Harper arrived at Seaside Diner to find Rosie waiting for them with unusual excitement. There's someone here to see you, she said, gesturing toward their regular booth. Quinn sat where she always had, wearing a simple blue dress instead of the waitress uniform, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Harper broke free from Cole's hand, racing across the diner. Quinn, you came back. Quinn caught her in a hug, laughing with a lightness that Cole hadn't heard before. I told you I would, didn't I? Just needed some time to get stronger. Cole approached more slowly, taking in the changes. Quinn looked healthier. She'd gained back weight loss during her months of running, and the haunted look had faded from her eyes. Hello, stranger, he said, sliding into the booth across from her. Quinn's smile turned slightly shy. Not a stranger, just someone who needed to figure a few things out before coming back. Harper bounced in her seat between them, full of questions. Did you get my drawings? Are you better now? Are you staying? Quinn answered each one patiently, explaining in child-appropriate terms that she'd been sick in a way doctors couldn't fix with medicine, but she was working hard to get better. As Harper colored the children's menu, Quinn leaned closer to Cole. I wanted you to know, I had dinner with Sterling last week. Neutral territory, just like we agreed. Catherine came too. Cole raised an eyebrow. How did that go? Quinn's laugh held genuine amusement. Awkward, tense. He brought corporate financial reports to show me how my trust fund was performing. Old habits. But he's trying. He asked about my therapy instead of telling me I don't need it. He listened more than he talked. Progress. Cole sipped his coffee, studying her over the rim of the mug. And how are you? Really, Quinn considered the question with new seriousness. Better. Not fixed, but better. The therapist says I have complex PTSD from the emotional abuse. Says it'll take time to unlearn all the survival mechanisms I built up. She traced a pattern on the table with her fingertip. Some days are harder than others. The cravings for alcohol come and go. But I haven't had a drink in 26 days. Proud of you. Cole's simple statement carried more weight than lengthy praise would have. Their conversation continued through dinner, Harper's chatter providing counterpoint to the more serious undertones between the adults. Quinn shared details of her recovery, outpatient treatment, 3 times weekly meditation classes, a part-time job at a bookstore. that didn't trigger the anxiety she'd experienced in more demanding positions. As they finished their pie, Quinn grew more hesitant, glancing at Harper, then back to Cole. There's something else I wanted to talk to you about. I've been thinking about moving back to Cedarville. Cole kept his expression neutral, despite the leap of his pulse. Any particular reason? Quinn smiled, the expression reaching her eyes in a way it rarely had before. I miss it here. The simplicity, the quiet. Portland has great resources for my recovery, but it also has too many reminders of my old life. Too many connections to Sterling's world. She watched Harper coloring intently. And I miss you too. The friendship we were building before everything fell apart. The admission hung between them, neither fully romantic nor merely friendly. Cole thought carefully before responding. We've missed you too, but I need to know this isn't just another escape. Harper's already lost too many people she cares about. Quinn nodded, accepting the concern as valid. That's fair. I'm not making any sudden moves. I'm looking at apartments, considering options. My therapist supports the idea but says I need to build a solid support network here first. Local meetings, a new therapist, a sustainable routine. Harper looked up from her coloring. Are you coming back to live with us? Quinn exchanged a glance with Cole before answering gently. No, sweetie. I'd get my own place. But I could see you more often than just letters. Cole watched his daughter process this information, relieved when she nodded acceptance. The three of them left the diner together, standing in the parking lot where their paths had first crossed months ago. The evening air carried the scent of pine and distant rain, the Oregon summer fading toward autumn. Quinn hesitated beside her car, a newer model Toyota that had replaced the Honda, another sign of her changing circumstances. I should get back to Portland. I promised Mom I'd help her rearrange furniture tomorrow. The MS is flaring a bit. Cole nodded, keeping a respectful distance. Give her our best. The dinner invitation stands whenever you're both ready. Quinn's smile widened. I'll tell her. She stooped to hug Harper goodbye, then straightened, meeting Cole's gaze with new confidence. Thank you for everything. For showing me what courage looks like when it's not fueled by desperation or alcohol. You always had courage. Cole's voice softened. You just needed to find the right reasons to use it. After Quinn drove away, Harper took Cole's hand as they walked to his truck. She's happier now, isn't she? Daddy, Cole lifted Harper into her booster seat. Yes, kiddo, I think she is. 2 months later, Quinn moved into a small apartment 3 blocks from Cole and Harper's place. She found work at Cedarville's public library, joined a local recovery group, and established a routine that balanced independence with connection. Each week included dinner at Cole's apartment, movie nights, where Harper fell asleep between them on the couch, and quiet conversations after the little girl was in bed. Their relationship evolved gradually, neither rushing toward romance nor denying the growing bond between them. Quinn maintained her quarterly dinners with Sterling and Catherine, reporting steady, if imperfect, progress in healing family wounds. Catherine's health stabilized with new treatments, and she began visiting Cedarville, occasionally getting to know Harper and forming her own friendship with Cole. Sterling remained more distant, honoring the boundaries established at the hotel, but sending birthday and Christmas gifts to Quinn that showed increasing thoughtfulness rather than mere expense. He never contacted Cole directly, but Quinn relayed his reluctant acknowledgement that Cole's intervention, while unwelcome at the time, had ultimately forced necessary change. On the 1-year anniversary of Quinn's departure from the Ashford estate, she and Cole sat on his apartment balcony after Harper was asleep, sharing coffee and conversation beneath a star-filled sky. Did you ever imagine we'd end up here? Quinn gestured between them, then toward the peaceful town around them. When you first stood up to that jerk at the diner, did you have any idea what you were starting? Cole shook his head. I just did what seemed right at the time. Same as when we went to get you from your father's house. One step after another, not a grand plan. Quinn's hand found his in the darkness. That's bravery, you know. Not fearlessness, but doing what's right despite the fear. You taught me that, you and Harper. Cole intertwined his fingers with hers, the gesture still new enough to carry significance. We taught each other. Your courage inspired mine too. Quinn leaned her head against his shoulder, her voice thoughtful. I had dinner with Sterling last week. Just the two of us this time. He asked about you. Cole raised an eyebrow. What did he want to know? Quinn laughed softly. If you were treating me well, if I was happy, if we were serious about each other. Her voice carried a question of its own in those last words. Cole turned slightly to see her face in the dim light. And what did you tell him? Quinn met his gaze steadily. I told him I'm still learning what healthy love looks like, that we're taking our time building something real, that you've never once tried to control me or change me. She hesitated, then added, I told him I'm happier than I've ever been, and you're a big part of that. Cole brushed a strand of hair from her face, the touch gentle as a whisper. I told Harper something similar when she asked if you were my girlfriend now. Quinn's smile held both humor and tenderness. What did she say to that? Cole chuckled. She said it was about time since she's been drawing us as a family for months now. The conversation lapsed into comfortable silence, the night wrapping around them like a shared blanket. Eventually, Quinn spoke again, her voice carrying the weight of realization. You know what I've learned this year? That freedom isn't just about escaping. It's about choosing where you belong, who you become, who you love. Cole nodded, understanding completely. It's about building a cage with the door left open. Staying because you want to, not because you have to. Quinn turned to him fully, then her expression opened in a way it had never been during those early days at the diner. Exactly, and I choose this. Her hand gestured to encompass the apartment, Cedarville, their evolving relationship. I choose you and Harper and this life we're building. Not because I'm running from Sterling, but because I'm running towards something better. Cole's kiss was gentle, a promise rather than a demand. We choose you too. Later that night, after Quinn had returned to her own apartment, maintaining the boundaries they'd established during her recovery, Cole stood at Harper's bedroom door, watching his daughter sleep. The drawings on her wall told the story of their journey. The caged bird, the bird in flight, and now a nest with three birds together. A child's simple representation of a complex emotional truth. His phone vibrated with a text message from Quinn. Forgot to tell you, Catherine's coming next weekend. Sterling asked if he could drive her. First time he's expressed interest in visiting. Thoughts? Cole considered the question, the implications of Sterling Ashford in Cedarville in their lives more directly than before. A year ago, the idea would have filled him with dread. Now it generated caution, but not fear. He texted back, if you're comfortable with it, we'll make it work. Family is complicated, but it's still family. Quinn's response came quickly. Thank you for understanding. For everything. Sweet dreams. Cole pocketed his phone and took one last look at Harper's peaceful form before heading to his own bed. Tomorrow would bring another day of work, of parenting, of building this unexpected life they'd created from the wreckage of Sterling's control. It wasn't perfect. Quinn still struggled with recovery. Cole still woke from occasional PTSD nightmares. Harper still asked about her mother at unexpected moments. But it was real, honest, chosen freely rather than dictated or escaped from. And in that choice lay all the difference.